Hello. So let's do something. Let's do something else that's kind of fun. Take our mind off wrestling a little bit. So I watched this anime called Yasuke. It is a Netflix anime, and it was trending on Twitter quite a while ago. And it took me a while to actually sit down and watch it, but I did. And if you like Afro Samurai meets 47 Ronin meets the American Civil War, this is not bad. Now, there's a lot to like and dislike about this show. We're going to go through it. I'm not going to give an entire blow by blow, but I will give you, for people who are not have no plans to watch it. By the way, this is just between you. It's just between us. But I didn't pay to watch this. And if you give money to Netflix, you're part of the problem. Anyway, I watched the show, 6 episodes. It was only six, so that was fine. We'll give some positive and negatives. I'm gonna tell you the story. So Yasuke. It is a story that is based on a real life black samurai who lived in Japan, yada yada yada, many years ago. But this is not his story. It is just a character that is named, that is tossed into a feudalistic robo techno magical world of Japan 400 some odd years ago or something like that. So the character is named after a real life black samurai, but it does not tell that man's story. It just uses his name. Okay. So what is this Yasuke about? So the show is about a black samurai named Yasuke who was fighting alongside, I believe it was Nobunaga, during the Japanese Civil War. And Nobunaga was looking to unify Japan, and he was going through, conquering areas to unify Japan. And these other areas were ruled by this thing called the daimyo. It's like a monster of some kind. And of course, they didn't want to change the broken up fiefdoms. That's what they wanted. They wanted the small fiefdoms where everybody had their own place, and you stayed on your side of the fence, I stayed on my side of the fence, whatever. So Nobunaga is seen as being very different. Dare I use the word progressive? Not only does he have a black samurai, he also has a female samurai, and he wants to unify Japan. And when we are introduced to the characters, Nobunaga is pretty much being destroyed. His army is being wrecked by the powers of the incoming daimyo, and Nobunaga ends up committing suicide. He stabs himself, and Yasuke is forced to finish the job and cut his master's head off. For those of you who don't understand samurai culture, a samurai is like a vassal to what might be called a lord. So you pledge allegiance to one person, and that one person is your master. You know, so this is his master. He's a free man. He's not a slave anymore, but he's essentially a vassal to Nobunaga. Nobunaga stabs himself after seeing how horrible this thing is going for him and his side in this war. And Yasuke is forced to cut his head off, and in order to give him an honorable death. And so Yasuke we get thrust into the future where Yasuke is older. He's unkempt. He hasn't been doing anything. He's been living alone. He's essentially a hermit. He sort of ghost walks through the town. He doesn't really talk to anybody. He doesn't really interact with anybody. He goes, he has his drinks. He's a drunkard. And then he kind of goes back. And we see throughout the story, at least through half of the series at least, that he is haunted by things that took place in the past. People that he had to kill. The fact that he failed his master. These are old Japanese tropes that you've seen in shows like 47 Ronin. Or movies like 47 Ronin. So he failed his master. His master is dead. His master's dream is dead. And now he basically is an empty shell floating around Japan. So the story really kind of picks up with this girl named Saki, who is, she has psychic powers which are now awake. And the awakening of her psychic powers made her sick. So her guardian, her mother, wants her to take her to a specific doctor so that she can get well again. But Yasuke is a boatsman at this point. He just he takes people from to and fro. That's how he gets money. and he's asked to take the girl to see the doctor. And at first he doesn't really want to do it, but he sees a pendant that the mother wears and it's similar to a woman he knew in the past. So he ends up doing it. While he is transporting the young girl to this doctor, they are assaulted by four mercenaries. One of them is a giant robot, which is fucking cool. Another one is a black mystic, another mystic, and he is essentially stupefied about not being the only black man in Japan. A Russian female werebear, and there's also another female soldier. She has like scythes or whatever. So in this attack, the mother is killed, and then we find out that these people, these four mercenaries, they're working for the White Robe. He is a priest for the Catholic Church who wants to kidnap Saki and use her power to fulfill some type of destiny. So after the White Robe is defeated, the mercs go away. They didn't get killed or whatever. They leave, and then the next three episodes, 4 through 6, we get a new villain, the Daimyo, who wants to capture Saki to drain her power so that the Daimyo's power can grow. So the Daimyo wants to essentially eat Saki and make herself more powerful. So that is the spine of the story for the most part, and everything is taking place within that. So let's get into some of the things here. So let's talk about some of the positives. The animation is great. The animation is fantastic. The fight scenes are actually pretty good too. I really enjoyed that. But the best thing about it is the soundtrack. The opening and closing themes are performed by Thundercat and Flying Lotus. Tremendous stuff. It is the opening song is truly tremendous. It's like a good hip hop, song. It's fun. Thundercat is a funk bassist, so it has a great theme to it. If you like giant robots and high octane action scenes, you should like this. There's plenty of course, blood, and stuff like that. Now, unfortunately, a lot of the parts in here are derivative. And I basically said it earlier, it's basically like, somebody said, oh yeah, you remember Afro Samurai? Now we got to have our own Afro Samurai. Afro Samurai was also another very short series. It was fantastic though. Jeez. Afro Samurai was great because what made Afro Samurai better than this is that Afro had a personal goal, a personal mission that he was out and on, and you learned it from episode 1. In Yasuke, you're not entirely sure what Yasuke wants. Like, you have what his master wanted, and he just wanted what his master wanted. His master wanted to unify Japan. He was kind of like, okay, well, me too. He had no personal goals, and then he had to be, of course, coaxed into actually helping Saki. So he didn't really want to help her, but of course, once you in that situation, you get the call, you refuse, and then you go into it and you pick up steam. But trying to figure out like the Magnet questions, or the 4 Magnet questions about Yasuke personally, is because he's such an empty vessel as far as the character is concerned. He doesn't seem to have any wants. He seems perfectly content just being left alone, being a boatsman and a drunk, living in a hut. And he is, of course, yanked out back out into the world, which is fine. That's a fine storytelling device. But once he is yanked out into the world, that's when he starts having wants, and he doesn't really even want that, because when you say that he wants to, let's say you wanted to say he wants to protect Saki, let's say. Well, Saki doesn't want him to protect her. She is the one with the psychic power. He's not. He's an old samurai. He's good at fighting, but he's an old man. He's an old man. And there's even one part of the story where she says, I don't need you to protect me. I got psychic powers. So that's how you know this is an American anime, by the way. because all of the trappings of the political philosophy is in there. The girl has a power that is within her that she needs help to control, but when she finally gets to the school, she's already better than everybody else, so she doesn't really need to train. Then you also have that, you're thinking that the black samurai is going to have to protect this, pitiful young girl. And then it turns out she needs to save him most of the time. And she openly says like, "Oh, I don't really need your help. You're coming along with me to the doctor, you know." And part of it is because Yasuke feels bad because her mom died. But the real reason he's coming along, she really wants Yasuke to take her to the doctor is because she doesn't want to go by herself. That's it. Not because, there is something within him or special about him. It is, well, I don't want to make the trip alone. It's like, what? You got whatever, dog. Anyway, so of course, more of the trappings of progressivism. The past is bad. All things that took place in the past are bad. There was a conversation. It's not much. There's not a lot of preaching in here. But there's a conversation between Yasuke and the female samurai about them not being accepted, which of course is going to be, it's going to happen, right? You have a black samurai, you have a female samurai. Now they did add some color to the female samurai. She just wasn't a blandly female samurai. She was actually a spy working for another organization. And he found out about it, ended up having to kill her. And they had grown this relationship. So Yasuke in the past is actually far more important and far more interesting than Yasuke in the present. So we might as well have just told that story. Instead of going back and forth, we were better off just telling the story of Yasuke going from slave to samurai, because that's an actual cool story. He came to Japan as a slave, and he was able to impress Nobunaga as, being a man of a big, strong guy for starters, but also, somebody with character, somebody who stood up for kids, who had his own beliefs. And Nobunaga, admired that. And that's a good thing to build the character on. And they're showing you how he kind of fell off of that. That's how he was when he was in the past as a younger man. Now he's got these kids trying to get him to train them. He's like, nah, I don't really want to help the girl. She's sick. I don't really want to help this kid who's trying to become a good fighter, and he wants me to train him. I'm like, nah. So you see how he cared for children in the past, and now he doesn't. Or he cared for children in the past, but now he's in his depression, so he doesn't really want to be pulled out of it. And that's good character progression, because you can put your hero in a hole like that and then dig him out of it. But it's just weird. In any event, so it's very difficult to do the, what does he desire? Because his desires aren't really his. He just kind of goes along with other people. Saki wants to go to the doctor, not because she needs a doctor, because she's not really sick. She just doesn't want to be by herself. She just doesn't want to go alone. And he's just kind of like, okay, I feel kind of bad because your mom died, so I guess I'll go with you. But he thought that he was going to be her protector. And then he finds out she doesn't need a protector. So you're like, so everybody's left scratching their head like, okay, that's silly. So the best storyline, if we're being honest, in the show, it comes from the 4 mercenaries, because they're hired by the White Robe, a guy who works for the Catholic Church, because Christianity bad. He wants to kidnap the Japanese girl and use her psychic power back in Europe. Yasuke and the psychic girl ends up killing the priest, and the mystics or the 4 mercenaries, they get paid. So then later, because they didn't get killed in the first arc, in the second arc they come back. They are hired by the school, which is run by one of Yasuke's former comrades, and they're hired to help protect the school. The school is where all of the mystics and the revolutionaries are, because revolution good. So they're trying to overthrow the daimyo, and the daimyo, doesn't know where they are. It's a secret place or whatever. And so Yasuke has to take Saki to the place. And then when they get there, we find that the daimyo is ready to destroy the school and wreck the revolution and all that stuff. So the mercs come back and they come in as protectors of the school. So you get to see them as antagonists of Yasuke, and they actually killed Saki's mom. They are the ones who killed Saki's mom, even though Yasuke kind of took the blame for it, that he could have protected her, but he didn't. And even in that situation, of course, she tried to fight on her own. This is why she ended up getting killed. But now they're the protectors of Saki and the school. But what made it even cooler is that they all but one, died heroically. For instance, you have one of them, they're watching to see where the daimyo's people are. And she's talking to the robot. And she tells the robot that the robot is her friend. And this is probably the most touching, most emotional piece of the entire story. And the robot is like, we're friends? Like, he's a robot, right? Like we're friends? And she's like, I enjoy killing people with you. And I enjoy your company. So yes, we're friends. And then she get hit in the head with an arrow. And boom, she goes down. And the robot is like, friend? My sensors are telling me that you are deceased. Am I malfunctioning, friend? And I almost cried. I almost cried. He doesn't understand that she's dead, right? She was just alive not too long ago. Now she's dead. And he's just like, friend? And so the werebear and the black mystic, they fall back to try to protect the few people that they can protect and do what they can to keep those people alive. And the robot flies off where all of these archers, the daimyo's army is, and he turns himself into like a bomb. So he's like pushed in the self-destruct code, and then he's flying into the archers, and he says, goodbye, friend, and explodes and kills all the archers. It was fucking cool, right? It was very heroic. That was some cool shit, right? And then you get the werebear, right? They're overrun because the daimyo has far more people than they do. They finally get to a place with walls, and the guy has trying to get as many people as he can, and the werebear turns around at the door, and she's like, I want to see how many of these guys I can hold back. So she transforms into the bear. She goes in, she just starts mauling all of these ground troops, and she's just tearing them apart. And then she gets killed by the mystics. They have mystics too. So the mystics of the daimyo murder the werebear, and she dies very heroically trying to protect this school. And you're just like, wow. These people got like real heroic deaths. Now the black mystic survives. He survives until the end. But they got real heroic deaths. It was fucking cool. Next to the soundtrack, that's the best thing about this series, right? Those 4 characters, and you don't learn a lot about them. I don't even know what their names are, right? But those 4 characters are fucking cool. I rocked with that. Now, they did, and you can tell they basically just followed, they had basic structure, like I said, Afro Samurai, the man with the iron fist, the RZA movie where he, he was Jax from from Mortal Kombat, 47 Ronin. They threw all that stuff into a pot, and not just the Black Samurai, but RZA did the entire soundtrack for Afro Samurai. So then they had Flying Lotus, who is basically the modern day RZA, do the soundtrack for Yasuke. And then you had 47 Ronin, which is, the master is betrayed and he's killed. And then the samurai go on a revenge tour, except for in this one, they didn't do that. But in the Keanu Reeves 47 Sam Ronin, which is what I should say. And in the Keanu Reeves version, it was all about him being an outsider, him not being trusted, him not being taken in. And they took that, just turned him black, and threw that into Yasuke. So it's very derivative. So you had that. But other than that, the series was fine. It was very short, so there was nothing to hate, but it was a lot of progressivism, obviously. It just wasn't very preachy. It was fun to watch. It took me a while to watch it because I was just kind of like, it wasn't something I gobbled up. Like you could watch 6 episodes in one evening. It took me 2 days. I would watch 2 episodes and an episode here and an episode there. So it didn't really grab me and take me on this ride for 6 episodes. It was just kind of like, oh, this is cool. It's all right. Would I have binged it if I actually had Netflix? Probably not. I probably would have watched 1 episode and been like, I'll watch another episode some other time. I prefer my shows to grab and hold. I didn't find Yasuke to be that interesting of a character, especially in a show that's named after him. The villains are very one-dimensional as far as they just kind of want the girl for their own personal reasons, which is fine. And Yasuke just kind of is sort of her protector, kind of, even though not really. Depending on how how this particular scene is being written. So you had that. So let's do the Mammoth questions because we need to wrap this up. So what did Yasuke want? Well, he wanted, when he was a younger man, to help unify Japan. He wanted his master to be the, I guess, emperor of Japan. Later, in his older days, he wanted Saki's safety. He wanted her to get to the school safely. What obstacles were in the way? Well, he had this internal guilt, this internal shame of letting his master down. Then, of course, you had the actual antagonists of the 4 mercenaries. Then you also had the daimyo, you had the white robe, and you had all the daimyo and all her people trying to either kill Saki or kidnap her and trying to kill him for trying to protect her. See, what happens if he doesn't get it? Well, nothing really. The daimyo, in one situation, if he doesn't protect Saki, then Saki gets kidnapped and she gets taken all the way to Europe to get used in some crazy plan of the Catholic Church. If he doesn't protect her in the second part of the series, then the daimyo, I guess, eats her and becomes more powerful. Why now? Well, the entire concept of the story is because Saki's power is now awake. Now her power is just now being awakened. So now the story can actually begin because Yasuke has no real wants of his own, So that's kind of it. And it's an interesting show. I would probably give it like a 6.5, because of how much I love the animation, how much I love the story, the arc of the 4 mercenaries. The backstory of Yasuke is pretty interesting. His current, more older self is not so much. Saki is, on the fence, where I like her sometimes I don't. But that was really the problem, is all the characters I liked got killed. And I only liked them right before they died. Because they weren't given a lot of depth. Let's put it like that. They weren't given a lot of depth. But it's still a fine show. 6 episodes, you're not going to get preached to. But there is some problems. So I'll give it a 6.5. Let me know what you guys think if you watched it. And I'll talk to you guys later, man. Peace.